Be sure to subscribe for your chance to win a custom leather playmat when we hit 2,500 subscribers. Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Mass. Playing live over Discord with people from all over the world every Wednesday and Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Here we've got Dustin on Bomberman, squaring off against Mark on 4-color Loam. And we've got that turn one, looks like is that a Seb McKinnon Chalice of the Void? We've got Ancient Tomb powering that out. And Mark has a Cycle Land being discarded to Mox Diamond and Dark Confidant. We're a little zoomed in on this one. I'll get the layout better refined for subsequent videos. Dark Confidant getting taken out by a Walking Ballista token. So Ancient Tomb's doing a ton of damage to both players. Damage to Dustin's life total, but that is easily worth it as it has enabled a turn 1 Chalice and a turn 2 Walking Ballista, clearing the Dark Confidant. Now, 4-color Loam typically is a Chalice deck, so they're usually very light on the 1-mana spells. And that Abrupt Decay does, in fact, take out the Ballista, not caring about the Chalice. Really, the only 1-mana spells for the most part are going to be Green Sun Zenith, which quickly stops being a 1-mana spell after turn 1. You can grab a Dryad Arbor on the first turn with it, and after that, it's a toolbox, kind of similar to Ponder. So Dustin is now aware of Oko, thanks to the Urz's Bauble. I think technically in a tournament setting, you don't necessarily know which card your opponent found out about. And a Walking Ballista now with 3 counters. Chalice at 0 from Mark, going to be way, way better than Dustin's Chalice at 1, as that's actually going to shut off the Urz's Bauble, Mishra's Baubles, Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal. It'll really cut down on the utility of those cards, countering all of them when cast. Now, there are still uses in the sense that you can throw them out once you have a Monastery Mentor on board for easy prowess, especially when you've got a Mystic Forge out to cycle through your deck. And we've got an Oko who is not really great at answering Walking Ballista. Turning it into an elk would just be a very, very large elk. And Oko's going to go ahead and make a food. Yeah, we'll have this definitely sorted sooner than later as far as this formatting. This is a new look for the channel if you've been following us. We've got a Heliod Suncrowned, I think it is. However, it's off of a Cavern of Souls, so no white mana to actually allow for the infinite combo quite yet. Just all colorless here. And it looks like that looked to me like Oko ticking down, or ticking up to Elk the Walking Ballista. And then a couple of counters getting removed. Another threat to the board here. It's a little blown out. And another, what I believe is Knight of the Reliquary. I think we've got 2 knights down. Monastery Mentor. And during the end step, that Savannah is going to change into a Wasteland. That takes out an Ancient Tomb. Yeah, I don't see a reason to activate during your opponent's end step. Very often when you're using Wasteland effects, usually you want to wait longer, just in a general sense. You kind of want to wait until the last moment, unless there's potential for like floating mana, which is a whole nother situation. But for example, if you're playing against a deck like Bomberman and you have a Wasteland, it's almost never correct to Wasteland during your opponent's end step compared to going to your turn and then Wastelanding on your turn. If they're not going to have responses, you may actually decide that there's a better use for that Wasteland during your turn, and you can always sacrifice it on your turn anyway, so you don't really lose anything by giving yourself the chance to make the most informed decision possible. These Knight of the Reliquaries quite large. And another Wasteland. Leaving Dustin with just a couple of Cavern of Souls, and he's going to have to scoop it up there. Despite having Heliod and Walking Ballista on board, just not having that white mana necessary to activate to set. I think I cut myself off there. Not having the white mana available for the combo. Cavern of Souls is a heck of a magic card, but it does not tap for white. I run up against it sometimes with Stoneforge Mystic. I mean, that's a very real consideration. For example, Encephalid Breakfast, not being able to use the Cavern to put in the Batter Skull is a massive consideration. It's part of the reason why we don't see as many copies of Cavern as you might expect in a deck like that, which is a creature-based combo. I mean, obviously, Caverns are phenomenal in that deck when they work, but the reality is sometimes you just need the mana for other purposes. And we just saw there, Dustin, it's going to be very disappointing to lose when you've literally drawn your combo, but just don't have that white mana necessary. You had the white to cast Heliod, thanks to the Cavern, but not to actually use its ability. Wow, Mark mulling and hitting a pair of Leyline of the Voids. Dustin, Ancient Tomb, Mox Opal, passing the turn. No Metalcraft yet. A Verdant Catacombs and a Chalice at 0. Those hate cards put off to the side, unfortunately cropped out here. Can't actually play with that currently. We've got a Karn, and he's just going to come down in plus. And we might, if Mark doesn't have a creature to commit to the board here, this could just be Mycosynth Lattice on Dustin's next turn for game. Got a... And that is going to do it. So Karn actually going to get the Mycosynth Lattice. Mark, no answer there. Just going to have to pass the turn and watch that Mycosynth resolve. Dustin picks up a quick game 2. We'll be on to game 3. Where Mark will have the play. That Chalice at 0 a very real threat. I don't actually know if Dustin should bother leaving his chalices in. I mean, it really depends on what he has in his sideboard, but there's really not a ton of good stuff. Though the curve on Bomberman is incredibly high. Just thinking if you actually could chalice it too, it would hurt Mark. I'm trying to think of what it actually hits in Dustin's build. Yeah, let me know. Would you board out your chalices here as Dustin? I mean, I feel like it's likely he's got some better sideboard options. You know, Chalice is not quite Blood Moon, but it's kind of similar. Like Blood Moon decks, obviously, when you play against other Blood Moon decks, the card is just hot garbage, which is complicated and a disaster. Not really the case here as far as Bomberman and 4-color Loam. They're both decks that use Chalice, but they have a lot of other stuff going on. So it's not like they just hinge on having a turn 1 lock piece every time and hope that your opponent's just not able to interact at all. These are quite capable of being very proactive, to the point where Bomberman can probably... I mean, yeah, I guess it can technically win on the first turn, so it's unlikely, but totally could happen. Now we've got a Leyline of the Void, which is going to eliminate a lot of those potential wins, and a Bajuka Bog being played from hand. Unfortunately, not going to have access to Brainstorm to put that back into the deck. It's a nice card to grab with Knight of the Reliquary as a little gotcha moment. A Wasteland takes out Ancient Den. And now an Ancient Tomb comes down. Windswept Heath for Mark. And he is passing the turn. And just tapping that graveyard. Just to note, it's not actually the graveyard. I guess I misspoke there. It's actually the exile. Any cards going in there are going to be exiled. Used to be very relevant against Arcbound Ravager. Just the Dies ability. One thing to remember about Leyline is it does stop all of the Dies abilities. So things like Arcbound Ravager's Modular will not actually work if your opponent has a Leyline out. It will not go to the graveyard. It will just go right to exile. So there'll be no trigger to move those counters around. Pretty disappointing for Ravager players back when Dredge was main decking Leylines in Vintage. I think it probably still is. I haven't looked in a while, but I'd be surprised if it's not. And we've got a pair of Leylines here for Mark. Not a lot of business. And instead, we've got, yikes, Monastery Mentor getting 2, now 3 spells. And at this point... Interesting. So, Chalice, a whole bunch of guys. We'll see if all of those were worth playing, or if it would have been better to perhaps hold on to a few. Abrupt Decay. Oh, look at that, Mark having the answer, and a Dark Confidant. So, playing more conservatively could have potentially been a real problem. Oh, but another Monastery Mentor, is it? And Mox Opal. And that's going to be 10 damage thanks to this one Mox Opal. Five times 2. And this is looking pretty bad for Mark, facing down a lot of monks. Plague Engineer would be nice. Gotta name Monk, because the tokens are actually not humans. Not intuitive at all. You'd think they'd be human monk tokens, but they're not. They're just generic monks. And that is going to do it as Mark's scooping it up in the face of all of those monks. Bomberman showing some real resiliency to hate. I mean, Leyline not going to be enough to stop a angry swarm of monks there. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.